Hello, Eivind. Hello, everyone. And thank you for joining us today. Um, okay, yeah, getting ready. I see the participant, the attendees going up. So, hello, everyone. I'm very happy to introduce Eivind Rijke, who has been leading a remarkable lean journey with Tom Refsdal, CEO at Nordic Door since 2020. Eivind, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Perfect. What makes Evan's story so compelling is that it's not theoretical. It's happening in a real manufacturing company, facing real crises and real constraints. Evan will explain how Nordic Door has used TPS, so the Toyota Production System, to develop its people, strengthen problem solving, and building a culture where learning is part of the daily work. And personally, just to share a little personal thing, I've also had the chance to work with Eivind on a new book on how lean CEOs transform themselves in order to transform their companies by focusing on every customer. The work happening at Nordic Door is a powerful illustration of that idea. Well, today you will get a rare inside view of how a leadership team uses TPS to grow leaders across an entire business. So, Eivind, thank you for being with us today, and the floor is yours.
Very kind introduction, Julie. I'm going to move you guys up so that I'm actually looking at you and not looking down. Good morning, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed the Lean Global Connection so far. My name is Eivind Rijke. I'm a research manager in Sintef Industry. It's Northern Europe's largest independent research institute, and I believe the second largest in Europe. Today, I'm here to present the journey of a company I've been lucky enough to follow as an action researcher for 5 years over 2 research projects. Some of you might have seen Monica and Rollife's presentations yesterday. And today I will take you through the journey that has gotten them to where they are today. So let's begin. It has been a journey of crisis. And when I was discussing with Tom how to present this, he showed me a slide and that he has shown to his board. And he said, look, this has been the last 5 years. And I've hidden some of this, so you'll see the rest of the journey as we go along. But the question for Tom was basically, we either transform or we disappear. And Nordic Door is a company it's a cornerstone company in a small place in Norway. So if a company like that disappears, it has large ramifications for the whole local area. Now, before 2020, they were already doing lean. Actually, they weren't doing too bad in terms of profit and turnover. They had a market, they had a very good margin. They had done some attempts with lean. Some lean tools, some attempts at 5S. They were doing morning meetings. They had a lean coach who was running the team meetings, unfortunately. So there was no ownership at the time, or at least when we started working with Nordic Door, there was not that much ownership. And the phrase was that lean is something that Monica does. So there were some tools, but they were there to support delivery. So they were not used for discovery. So in 2020, Tom Refsdal started as CEO in June 2020. And about the same time, we started a research project with Nordic Door called the Quick Response Manufacturing 4.0. It was a digitalization project, most of all, but there was also a management package where we were fortunate enough to be allowed to explore the Toyota production system as threshold concepts, meaning that we didn't look at the different aspects of the Toyota production system as tools, but as different concepts that we needed to learn and figure out, that each had their own learning curve. and then we needed to figure out how they work together. So that's kind of that was the approach we took. Nordic Door at the time was a traditional manufacturer with a traditional approach. Sell what you can, try to make it. Run the machines until they stop. And like I said, lean tool used to monitor delivery and not for discovery. And most importantly of all, there was no culture for developing people. So, but the model they had been profitable for so many years. So why change? Well, you will soon see why. So, first of all, imagine yourself, this is December 2020. So we're in the middle of the COVID pandemic. Everyone was wearing masks. People were afraid to get near each other because if they had an outbreak in the factory, it would just stop everything. So there was just we need to come to work, but we need to be we can't really talk to each other. We need to be in our own little area, and we need to just make sure that the factory runs. At the same time, Tom saw that the organization actually needed to change. The factory manager at the time, who's now production manager, is a great guy, Kjell Dagland. Really cool guy, really nice guy. He had personal responsibility for, let's just say, everyone. 100 and plus people reported more or less directly to him. So obviously that couldn't go on. So they needed to change the organization. Because of to create an environment where the leaders actually could develop the people they were responsible for. They also made a second change, and this picture here is from that workshop. Actually, that was the first time that me and my good friend Darrell Powell met Nordic Door. At least for me, it was the first time. And they had a couple of days workshop to look at the layout and to see if there was possible to do some changes to save some space. And this was the second change they did. Actually, the second change was the second change was a new CNC line, actually. And this one they had to implement during COVID with no help, with the Italians supporting online. And then the third change was the layout change. Where they moved one of the machines to free up some space, and which also meant they could implement the fourth change, which was a new painting line. Now, this was too many changes. There were so many movable parts which meant there were so many things that could go wrong. And this is basic Alan Moore stuff. If you have a 90% success of one change, or 90% possibility of succeeding with one change, and you do 4 at once, then that dramatically reduces. And we experienced this in real life. So the first lesson for us was don't change all at once. It wasn't the second lesson, but what we started to do from here, we did 3 things. We started to learn TPS together. We started to practice TPS together, and we started to teach TPS to the rest of the factory and the organization. So now imagine at this time they were running on weekly production series. The changeover of the automatic press was 3 times a week. There was a lot of capital tied up. And this approach actually led to there was about 3 weeks of lead time, and with about 5,000-6,000 doors. So for a couple of years, I thought the name of the company was Nordic Doors and not Nordic Door. It became a joke, but because there were doors everywhere, even in the toilet sometimes. Anyway, but how do you develop a leadership team during COVID? Well, we started with monthly Gambler walks with the CEO. First Gambler walk in March 2021, and the idea. What we did was we got every team to present what problem they were trying to solve, and what were the improvements they were doing. The team also visited the sister company and part owner, Giljeträ, which is kind of further along on their lean journey. And what we found was that some excelled as individual heroes, others more quietly built teams around them. So what we needed to do was to kind of look for both and allow them to use their strength and capability. But you have to remember that at this time, like the picture you can see in the picture, this was the conditions we were operating in. It was every time was you needed to do the test, and then you went down, and it was pretty special, to be honest. So like I said, we needed to identify operators and leaders with this kind of potential. The second lesson we learned from this was find and develop potential leaders is the key to building a foundation for a transformation. So what happens next? Well, there's a war. There's an idiot in the east who decides to invade his neighboring country. And how did this? Obviously, we're lucky enough to not be Ukraine, which is more of a crisis, of course. But for Nordic Door, it meant that there was a sudden change in supply chains. Even though they didn't buy wood from Russia or Belarus, these two countries were at the time very large suppliers to the European market. And the loss of wood from these two producers that had a big impact on pricing and availability from other European markets. And there was a sudden rise in cost of goods purchased goods. It was about 7% just over the summer, like 2 months, it was 7% up. Which is, if you look, it's their purchased goods over a year is about 15 to 20 million euros. So you can do the math. There's a lot of money there. Now, thankfully, the COVID restrictions ended in February 2022. And from March then, they immediately started a leadership development program where they've focused on a different kind of TPS. Obviously, was a big part of that. The other thing was training each other in how to be a better coach, how to orient, and how to support problem solving. And we were actually starting to see that the investment in problem solving and the investment in these team leaders was starting to pay off, and some were showing real promise. So we're now in about 2022 to 2023. So this is where they then decided, because they had so many doors in the production, that they needed to do something about this. So they decided that again. Monica, the lean coach, she facilitated a great workshop where we actually simulated the whole production, a week full of worth of production, like you can see with papers like this. And the idea was to change from weekly production runs to daily production runs. We did a workshop to simulate and test. And actually, this was met with a lot of pushback, and it has been a constant fight, more or less since. In hindsight, the development gap probably became too large too quickly. So they went from weekly to daily. And just to explain the audience what that means is that they have about 3 different main types of doors. So they have 3 big changeovers to do that. And they also have some smaller changeovers within those series. And it's completely made to order, but an order can consist of all these 3 types of doors. Then it could have painted doors, it could have lacquered doors, it can be different types of profile as well. So to move to the idea was to try and put all of this into one day, which kind of makes a lot of sense. But what we found was that it was a combination of the organization not being ready for it, and also that, the challenges they faced from that change was probably too tough. It did, however, have a positive impact on capital and cash flow. So what happened was they kind of it was like a negotiation between the factory and the management team that ended up in like a 2-day deal. So instead of doing 1-day production runs, they were kind of doing 2-day production runs. But we're now actually, it has led to a lot of other great things. They got serious about planning, which is something they never really considered before that. So I think in the long run, they will get there. But it's been a struggle. Mm-hmm. So third lesson, development happens outside of the comfort zone, but probably don't stray too far. So now we're moving up to the end of 2023, and inflation hits. So we have a third crisis. Because of inflation, there was a full stop in the Scandinavian market for doors. Everything, because all the entrepreneurs just said building houses, building hospitals, building schools, too expensive. So everything just stopped. Inflation hits Nordic Door. There was 9% inflation in Europe in 21 and 22, and this really hit them in 23 and 24. And so this all led to spiraling costs. So electricity went up 6 million Norwegian kroners. That's per year. That's about 600,000 euros. Cost of goods up 20 million. Interest rate, just from the Norwegian bank policy rate, from 0.5 to 4.5. So, everything just went skyrocketing. It meant they had to let go of all the temporary workers, and they also needed to furlough 20% of full-time workers just to stay alive. Now, that could have been the end of it, actually. But Tom and his team, they decided to, well, actually, even in all of this, we need to, the only way we're going to save this place and keep and prosper coming out of this is to continue to invest in the people that are left. So they actually looked at, okay, so what about our operators? Well, there weren't that many operators with skilled formal trade certificates. So they started to train operators, giving them formal competencies. We continued with the leadership development through Gemba walks and coaching programs. But there was still a big culture of firefighting and maintenance, which was basically a big drag on everything. Actually, Tom, they had a workshop in the local hotel, and actually Tom got so annoyed that he took a fire extinguisher and slammed it on the door on the table, like boom, and said, your days as firefighters are over. And actually the message came true, but they needed to build the basic stability. So back to the TPS house, we're now working on the learning how to build basic stability with TPM and 5S and those elements. So in this at the same time, there were changes in the leadership team. Fresh perspectives came in. They have a new purchase manager who is an excellent negotiator. And he's armed with facts and data. So he's done a lot of work renegotiating prices with suppliers, basically armed with a lot of good facts and data. He knows the raw material prices of all the stuff that goes into the material they buy from the suppliers. They brought in a new IT manager, which some of you might have met yesterday in Raw Life. He brought a strategic vision to digitalization, a big belief in PDCA and data-driven analysis, actually. So that's been helpful because it's brought that down to the shop floor, which is interesting because usually it doesn't happen like that with an IT manager, but he's been a very good addition. They restarted leadership training. They have internal, external training on lean continuous improvement for their team leaders and their department managers. They're continuing with the skill craft certification, continuing with Gemba walks, and they also train their managers in coaching skills. So this is all kind of ongoing, as even though the costs at the time were really tough on them. And actually, they did something very interesting. They started working with their supplier in Lithuania on cross-organizational learning. That commenced in the sort of summer of 2023 was the first time, and then that slowly went on to get work from there. So the fourth lesson we had was sometimes a fresh perspective is needed, but don't lose sight on where you're going. So we're now approaching 2025, And, are we staring head on into a global trade war? Like just recently in the news, they were worried that I was reading that the Norwegian metal producers are very worried. We're not in the EU, we're in the European Economic Community, and will we be part of the EU trade, the embargo or not? So this is again uncertain time of uncertainty. But so when we reach 2025, remember we're still kind of doing these monthly Gemba walks, meeting the different teams, working with sales, working with product development, working with the factory. And the factory actually, there was a lot of these really good team leaders and group leaders, department managers, which had done really cool stuff. Suddenly, nothing was happening. It's like, what's going on? And actually, what we found was that, and again, you have to find why is nothing happening. You have to face it. And what we realized was that not enough workers had been rehired. So as the volume kind of came creeping up again, the team leaders and the group leaders were actually working 100% in production. And they were very loyal, so they didn't really say anything. But we found the way we kind of found out was when we started asking about, well, why are you guys not working on improvements anymore? And they were like, we don't have time. So we actually asked them to make a Yamasumi to explain to themselves and to us to say, okay, so how many operators do we actually need to run this machine? And so that was a good learning experience for both them and us, actually. Continued multi-skilling in the factory has been important. And what we found is that, once we've given these managers or these leaders a space to improve again, actually, you can see they're really getting into it. And I think we felt that like this summer, just before this summer, there was a real breakthrough. And I was there yesterday. And they were showing me an improvement project in a painting line that is actually their low estimate is that it will save them 300,000 euros, 3 million Norwegian kroners a year, just by using brains. That's it's incredible. We've been working again then systematically on developing and improving the support functions, sales office, the customer complaints from poor quality in sales, which is the input to the factory, of course, is halved. I mentioned that they've been working systematically together with the factory to really understand how to plan how the different products impact the factory in terms of loading. Getting closer to sort of realizing this goal of one-day production series and actually sequencing production throughout the factory, which if you knew how different these products are, it's an incredible feat. They're building IT/OT infrastructure for digitalization to support maintenance, to support improvement, and also innovation in the product and in the process. And we're working on lean engineering and product development, making a better product for customers that is easier to build. There's an increased collaboration with both the factory and sales, and understanding what is possible and not possible to make. So there's a lot of very interesting things happening now. So the fifth lesson we've learned was that working on improvements is an investment in time that cannot be neglected, regardless of the situation of the company. And the investment they did in people during the hardest times in 2023 is really paying off now, 2 years down the line. So let's look at the numbers, shall we? It's been a bumpy ride. As you can see, in 2019, the turnover was about 350 million. And in 2025, we're now looking at just over 425. And just to give you an idea of what's happened in terms of EBITDA, you can see that they were actually doing pretty well in the old days. I had a product with a very high margin. That stopped in 2020. You can see that the margin is going down. That's the price pressure on the product. And you can see the costs rising in 2023 when it tanks at sort of minus 22, I think it was. So, but again, 2 years later, we're back to the same place, about 16 million Norwegian kroners in EBITDA. So yeah, lean. If you adopt lean as your strategy, if you if you commit to learning, practicing, and teaching TPS, hey, as a CEO, this stuff works. Let's just put it like that. So basically, just to give you an idea of kind of the squeeze and the how they've been able to really reduce cost by developing people. This is Hayashi stuff. People develop Genka Taigen through people development. The gross margin on a product is down 5%. That's a lot. From 50, so five numbers. So from 50 to 45. Interest rate from 0 to 4, and the electricity price is tripled. But the margin is back to 2019 level. And actually, when you adjust for inflation, real price of the product is actually down quite a lot. So it's been an incredible ride. So just the last slide, some conclusions moving forward. This is, by the way, this is the beautiful team in Nordic Door. These are the guys that has made this happen. These are the heroes of this journey. Support teams. So what we need to do. Okay, so what do we do? What have we done? What have we learned? Well, we need to support teams in developing their improvement skills. And we actually need to be quite patient about it. We need to support operators in developing technical product skills. This is very important. A lot of silly mistakes could have been avoided if people actually knew the product and the process deeply. We need to support everyone developing also digital skills, because these tools are coming and they can be used very smartly combined with lean thinking. So what we're seeing now, and kind of what we're in the middle of, which was also what Rolf was talking about, is actually we went from a lean transformation, and then we kind of something digital happened, and then now we're actually just still doing the lean transformation, where we're also adopting some new tools in there, very cleverly actually. But in the end, as the saying goes, it's always about people. So that's what I had to share today with you guys.
Thank you, Eivind. That was a demonstration on how a company is facing real external challenge and taking over it. It's for me, it make me think about the Toyota way, like how to face a challenge and take it, and not just and find other way to face it.
Yeah.
I think we have like 2 minutes left. We have a couple of questions. I don't think we're gonna have time to answer all of it, but I will pick up just one for you, Eivind. We got a question from Pratik. Hi, Pratik. How did you learn, teach yourself lean? Via Monica, or by individual reading and experimentation or simulation, and linking that to theory?
Okay. Learning TPS is two things: reading books and finding a sensei. I mean, and a sensei means someone who's worked with Taichi Ono. I'm lucky enough to have a few, and it's completely changed how I look at what the lean TPS is. So that's the easy answer. You open a book and you find yourself a sensei. That's how you learn lean, and you practice it, and then you discuss it, and you have a community of practice. So that's the sort of second step. So Monica Monica knows all the tools. She's excellent. She's a brilliant lean coach. So we don't need to really, me and Tom don't really need to deal with that. We don't teach the tools as such. She helps them implement what they need to discover what they need, what they don't know. So for us, learning and teaching lean has been learning TPS, practicing TPS, and teaching TPS with a sensei, reading books, in the community of practice.
Yeah, we got a rule, like when you read one book, but then the other rule is to open another book and then another book and then another book. Don't stop at one.
And every other book is not a lean book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah.
Well, I
Thanks.
think it's time. It's over. Thank you so much, Eivind. Thank you all.
Enjoy
Later,
Provence in
enjoy.
winter. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.